I'm doing great, even though every day's not fine. But still I woke up today, another day to get on my grind. Got me singing, whoa, whoa. Effort on bills for ready. Whoa, whoa. Effort on bills for ready. I'm doing great, even though every day's not fine. But still I woke up today, another day to get on my grind. Got me singing, whoa, whoa. Effort on bills for ready. Whoa, whoa. Effort on bills for ready.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Between the Lines presented to you by Livewire Sports. Tonight we have a very special guest on the show, Mr. Omari Peterkin. Omari, how you doing today?
Hey man, doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, so you sound a little bit excited for the show. Is this your first time doing like a Facebook interview?
Yeah, I think for the most part it is. I've done some like Zoom chats and stuff, but this is definitely new to me, doing like a live interview. It's pretty cool. Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. You have an interesting story here to tell for us, so we are glad to have you here. And we know our viewers are excited to hear what you have to say here tonight.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. They're looking forward to sharing it.
All right, so let's jump right into it. So can you tell us what sports you played while you were growing up, like elementary school?
Yeah, sure. So originally, growing up, I started off playing tennis. Tennis was a big sport. My dad got me into that from a young age. So started really young playing tennis. Well, I can't even remember the age, maybe like 6, 7, 8 years age, and played it, for maybe 5, 6 years, and it was pretty good. And stopped for a little bit. Back and forth between tennis and basketball, but tennis was my first sport before getting into basketball.
So now it's interesting that you played tennis because right now with this pandemic going on, tennis is at the top of the charts of sports right now because it's no contact at all. So everybody has to turn to tennis now. So it's great that you were a tennis player growing up.
Oh, most definitely love it. And tennis, unlike other sports, obviously beneficial right now with the pandemic, but it's a sport where it's, not as much contact like the other physical sports, the basketball, the soccer, the football. So you're able, people are able to play it, up into their 60s, 70s. I know, 80-year-olds still running around, moving around and able to play.
Right. Definitely. It's definitely a sport that, like you say, you don't get tired of tennis. You don't get too old for tennis. It's like a sport that lasts forever, honestly. And it's a great source of physical activity, to be honest, because you're running back and forth all day. A point can go for as long as 10 minutes going back and forth. So that is a whole new sort of stamina right there.
Oh, most definitely. I love it.
Now, what made you choose tennis over other sports? Like you said, you played basketball as well. What made you more favor tennis?
I think it was my dad, because my dad used to go and play. He learned how to play tennis when they moved to the islands. And I think that influence from him. And, I feel like tennis just universally, it was so big with helping with footwork, coordination, and just working on, I guess I would say mental toughness to a certain extent, because you're going back and forth. It's almost like athletic chess, because you're trying to, defeat your person, the other, your opponent, but, you're not actually physically hitting them or, doing any type of physical activity, but it's, a very, I think, intricate type of sport, but in its own way, it's specialized.
Definitely. There's not much other sports like tennis, so I can see where the specialization comes in. And like you said, footwork is something you need in every sport. So having great footwork in tennis definitely probably translated on the basketball court for you as well, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. I say like a lot of the footwork that I learned in tennis when translating it over to certain moves, shuffling your feet, different quick little footworks. It translating over to basketball, to me, the footwork in basketball was easy compared to the footwork that's done in tennis. That might not be the same for all
Everyone.
different athletes in general, but for me and the footwork that it took and learned at tennis from such a young age, the way it translated over to basketball was definitely very beneficial and helpful.
Now, where did you attend elementary and junior high school or middle school?
Uh, I went to Antilles School.
So now, was that from K through 12?
Yes, I originally went to All Saints. I think through kindergarten. I think first grade, and through kindergarten. Then I transferred, and it was K through 12 was at Antilles. There's a core group of us, like I think a lot of kids growing up on the islands that went to school together, from K through 12. But we have a good core group of friends who all went K through 12.
And that's where you make your best friendships. Like the kids that you remember that was your first class in kindergarten, and then you see them again in third grade maybe, and then you see them again in fifth grade, and then you're in class with them in ninth grade. Some of you
Mm-hmm.
even go to college with. Those are your best friends in the world at most times. So definitely friendships get built from an early age.
Oh, most definitely. I talk to, people that I've met, even talking to my wife and other friends, and, tell them that, hey, I have friends that I still talk to that we've been close friends since kindergarten. They look at me like, wait, what? I don't
Yeah.
know people that I met through kindergarten. And I was like, yeah, we have such a small, intricate community that, we grew up with in the islands, and to build those relationships that we did from such a young age with each other and the family members, and to continue to hold on to those relationships. I stay in touch with my buddies, once a week on a text, if that, if not, but even if like, we go long periods of time without talking to each other, whenever we do meet up, it's just like, okay, catching up quick, and it's just right back to it. Like we, just
Never missed
left
anything.
seeing each other a week ago or whatever.
So now, would you playing basketball and tennis? What are the only two sports you played during your grade school years?
Uh, Basketball, tennis for the most part. I did some soccer. Uh, we did some swimming here and there, but yeah, for the most part, it was basketball, tennis. I think we did a little bit of t-ball here and there, but yeah, I was more so into the tennis was big, and basketball for sure. Those two sports I'd say were my main sports from a young age.
Now, I definitely want to get the angle of tennis from you because I'm not too familiar with the tennis circuit down here in the Virgin Islands. So, and a lot of people aren't. So, can you provide some insight of where we can sign up to have younger tennis players getting into the game?
Um, so I know like during the time when I was down there, I was born in '83, but we did a lot of lessons, pretty much all over the place at the time. I'm not sure 100% familiar of how it is now, but there was stuff going down at sub base, stuff at Frenchman's Reef, um, Balongo Bay at the time. We were playing there, but tournaments were kind of spread out all over. I know there were
Mhm.
tournaments for the most part down at Balongo. I mean, down at sub base. A lot of tournaments down at sub base locally, but I'm sure that there are people down there who are trainers and coaches as well. Especially the different hotel resorts too as well, that should be available to for lessons and getting kids out there and playing, and learning those fundamentals of the sports and the footwork.
Right, right, right. Now, were you able to play on any travel clubs or compete anywhere outside of the Virgin Islands growing up?
For tennis or
Yes.
basketball? For tennis, yes. I played with, I think it was, I guess you could consider it the Junior Virgin Islands national team uh, at the time, and we traveled to a couple different places. I think we remember traveling to somewhere in Texas. I believe it was like Houston. I know we went to Birmingham, Alabama. Played in some tournaments there. Played in, I believe it was in Texas. Definitely some tournaments in Florida as well, where we traveled and represented the islands, for the junior national team, and we always did pretty well from the most part of what I remember.
Now, what was that experience like representing your country? Like, what was that like?
It was. I think it was really cool. I think at the time, I wasn't really like in the mindset of, oh my gosh, like, I'm here and like, in
Right.
present day, like really representing and what it all really means. But looking back at it now, it's like, well, that's, pretty cool. And, it's an honor, looking back at it that I was able to do that and represent, our, where we're from in any kind of manner.
Now, can you remember any of the more talented players that you played against on these junior national teams?
Uh, like that I played with that were on the team.
Yes.
Yeah. Oof. Guys that were with me. What's his name? There's Christopher Elian was a guy that was on St. Croix. Nick Bass was a guy that was on St. Croix. Jamie Richards was St. Thomas. What's his name? Lee Joseph was another player, big player from St. Thomas. I'm forgetting the guy's name. Lewis Taylor was a really good player out of St. Thomas. And there were a couple other guys here or there. Please forgive me. It seems like a while back, but there were some really good players. And, we all always played in tournaments and, mixed it up and challenged each other. And I think that was, obviously most beneficial to all of us and all of our careers. And, I hope for the most part that, all of those guys, if they aren't, still continuing to play and get out there and work with the younger generation of kids that are trying to learn and play the sport and see where they can take it.
Definitely, definitely. Now, do you have any outstanding awards that you received while playing tennis growing up?
Oof, that's a good one. There might have been a few tournaments here or there that I might have won in St. Croix whenever we went over there to play in some tournaments. And maybe I remember I wasn't always the number one player out of St. Thomas. I know that Lewis Taylor was the real dominant tennis player in St. Thomas. So him and I would go back and forth, and he would win most of the time. But competing against him and against a couple of the guys on St. Croix too. Christopher Elian was really good. Nicholas Bass was really good. Just competitive players who was really challenging and really tough, really mentally tough. I feel like tennis is definitely a game of mental toughness. And obviously you got to run around and move, but coordination is huge, footwork. But yeah, here or there were, I definitely would have like a couple of trophies, maybe in like my mom's garage somewhere.
I believe it. I definitely believe that. Now, I actually got to work with a Division I tennis team as my internship work in college. So I have a complete different respect for tennis players.
Yeah.
I tried to go out there a couple of times. They taught me a few things, but the stamina were going back and forth and the angles that you have to hit the ball over the net, it wasn't for me. But I had a great time just learning the game of tennis. Like, I can score tennis and I can do most of those things. But playing it really ain't my thing.
Yeah.
I might be a coach, but I can't.
You be a coach. You be supportive on the sidelines as a coach. That's all good.
Now, let's jump back into your basketball career. How did that go for you in grade school?
So basketball, from what I remember in grade school, we started off. I remember my older brother showing me, some moves and so forth in basketball, and I feel like the group of kids that my group of buddies who we grew up with from such a young age. We started in the Biddy League basketball games, and going and playing like teams like Dover and Cancrine and BCB, and we always used to get smoked by these teams, man. Like run off the court. These kids would be coming down, dunking on us, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And I swear, looking back at it and thinking about it and talking to some of my buddies about it sometimes, some of those kids that we used to play, I swear they had to be older than the limit because these kids, and we were playing on the biddy league rims too, and so
Right.
those are obviously lower, but these kids used to be just slanging home dunks, and it was like no contest. So it's just, what was I gonna say? We eventually over time, I think, developed, and we had some big kids. We have some, big guys, that, my close set of buddies that, we grew up playing together on these teams, going at it, playing, competing. And, eventually I think after over time, we would get over the hump and, beating one of these, teams like a Dover or a BCB. And then I think that started our progress as a team towards just developing.
Man, I tell you, there's nothing like that elementary basketball league. Elementary basketball and little league are the two greatest sports like in the history of sports. Like the competition level and the will to win at that age is great. And it's never, I mean, certain times you have teams that are overmatched, but it's never too far with the top two teams. It's always a competitive match with at least the last two teams standing. So it's always great to see elementary sports being played. And the fact that we have them in the schools is even better.
Oh yeah, it's huge. It's definitely huge, especially for down there. Just the competitiveness is, it's a huge factor into just developing kids of of that nature and moving on to the middle school, high school, and levels after that. It's very imperative.
My favorite thing about the elementary leagues is that you don't always get the best players on the team. The best players usually get to go on travel teams and they usually get picked up for the hoops and those kind of stuff. But when it comes to schools and it's so divided, you get a lot of players that don't usually get to play in those outside leagues to get a chance to learn the game and to build a passion for it. So elementary sports is something we definitely need to keep going to keep those kids involved and to give them opportunities sometimes.
Oh, most definitely. I completely and totally agree with you. It's very, very important to keep those things rolling in any way possible.
Definitely. Now, were you able to complete on the senior men's national team for either of these sports?
I was for basketball. So for basketball, I did the junior national team. I was chosen. I played with them a couple different times. At the time, the coach was Cyril Benjamin, CB. Met with me and selected me to go play. And we went to, did a couple different tournaments in regards to the junior national team. We went to Milwaukee, had some good times there. I think we got like second in that tournament. And then another big tournament we went to was in Bahamas, and which was a good tournament. I think we did pretty well that tournament. I think we got second in that tournament too as well, losing to Bahamas in the championship. But that was junior national team. And then I did have a couple, times with the senior national team. And those were pretty big experiences. Played against the USA team. I think that was in 2002 or 2003 in Puerto Rico. And that was the Tournament of Americas. And we played, a bunch of different teams that, North, Central, Mid-America region, Brazil, USA. Who else was the big teams? Argentina, a mixture of teams, Puerto Rico, we played a mixture of teams. I didn't, play a ton, but, being there for the experience, I think I was still in college at the time was huge, and being around the guys and, meeting these, players and, that are, playing at the ultimately high level was, just an experience that, you can't replace in any kind of way.
So I think you kind of like undermined your skill level in basketball a little bit at the beginning because you picked the senior men's national team because you're okay. You are a very good player if you make the national team. You are one of the selected few of this large country. Like this is important. This is not something that you can just say, yeah, I was a part of the senior national team. You say it with pride.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I have a hard time with that, with bumping up my ego sometimes. I still got issues with that to today, but
That's
I
perfectly.
was I was a part of it. I will say I was a part of it. It was good times, you know. Those guys and the competitiveness, the traveling, the practices, just being a part of it was good, was great.
Now speaking on the not the Olympics, but right before the Olympics, the qualifiers specifically, who are some of the players that surprised you when you actually saw their skill set on the court or saw the size on the court?
Oof. Um, so I'm about 6'7", 6'7.5". I tell people 6'8", but I'm 6'7". So I think the times that the few minutes that I played and got in the games, and matching up against like a Kenyon Martin, and that guy's like 6'10", like a legit 6'10", and a freak athlete, jumping with putting his shoulders above the rim. And for the first time, me, still in college, I think I was still fresh out of high school, matching up with a guy like that was, I think it was, I was like, oh my gosh, I was blown away and, really impressed and obviously, intimidated to a certain extent because, this is my first time, getting that experience and that exposure. But yeah, that is the one guy I definitely remember. But it just everyone on their level, everyone was, larger, super athletic, and just so skilled. And I think just admiring that the way that they played and moved as a team and their whole overall mindset, in regards to the game and how professional they were. It wasn't like, whether whatever team they were playing, or whether competitive or not, they were still, very professional in the way that they went about handling their business. And that was for the most part, majority of the teams.
Right, right. So let's jump a little bit later down into your college years. Now, were
Mhm.
you able to compete at the collegiate level in either sport?
I was able to. I was competed at the collegiate level in basketball. Yeah,
Now, what was the transition like from high school basketball to collegiate basketball?
it was tough. It was very very tough for me. So I came from St. Thomas, where I was, you know, okay, people were like, oh, you're the best player down here. Things are going well. Had a really good, junior senior years, um, and I originally went. I kind of got lucky in regards to my recruiting. It was at the last minute, in the late signing period in the spring. Coach Corbett, he was a former coach at Chaudamali High School. Rest in peace, Coach Corbett. um, he sent off like a bunch of highlight tapes of me to a bunch of big schools because I hadn't planned on going to any schools. To I think I was gonna try and go to University of Miami and walk on there. So he sent out a bunch of tapes at the last minute. So I went on a bunch of all these teams came down to see me. Um, Oregon, Kentucky, all these big time teams. So I went on a bunch of visits to all these teams, ended up choosing Notre Dame, got to Notre Dame and was complete and total shock, of the making that transition from, playing at the high school level to playing, whatever the Big East, top 5, top 10 in the country at the time. So it was a really, really tough transition. So didn't last there too long. I think I was there a year and then ended up transferring to Boston University.
So you started where? Can you repeat that one more time for me?
I started at Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Mhm.
Again, this is not something that's you just sweep under the rug. Like Notre Dame is one of the most respected colleges in academics and sports, so it's very well known. They have a large amount of money coming in for the athletic department, so I know you guys were outfitted properly. To
Yeah.
say the
Oh,
least.
yeah, we were. We were taken care of. But
What was it?
huh?
What was it like weather-wise for you up there?
That was my first time ever seeing snow, I believe. Yeah, I got that real first shell culture shock of that first winter just really tearing up your skin. It was it was intense. It was intense, and but it was an experience, and it wasn't like I went from, after I ended up transferring from there, it wasn't like I went to a place that was much warmer going to Boston.
Right.
But it was a good experience. We had that year at Notre Dame was kind of an eye opener to overall how, real basketball is played, at the highest level. Um, and just making that transition was a lot, and um, it was tough. It was really tough on me because I think mentally I don't know if I was ready for that, and to be honest with you, it it had a really hard effect on me, and led to, me at some points not even wanting to play anymore because, I came from a place where, I was on top of the world. I was the best player, and then transfer, getting, all this notification, all this expectations and all this pressure, getting there, and it's like, oh well, you're not getting that realization of, oh, you're nothing, you're not really the kingpin that you think you are, getting put in place. And it actually led to, looking back on it now, because of the field that I'm in now, and I can look back and say like, hey, I was really depressed, at some time. Like I put on a ton of weight. Usually, my playing weight was like around 265, 270. I think I blew up to 320, 330. Was eating, was oversleeping, and was just in a mood where I just wanted to be isolated and, by myself, not talking to people, not talking to friends, not talking to family. And, was going through some really dark times during that transition of, when I was signing the transfer. So it was some tough times, but, I think it all helped, looking back on it, into kind of molding me into the person that I am today, and what my values are and where I'm trying to go with my life.
Right. So, what were some of the things that helped you to bounce back or to recover from a situation where you felt lost?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, Family, man, family, my friends, uh, all the people, so a lot of people from home supporting me, a lot of my former coaches, excuse me. Yeah, just a lot of family, a lot of friends. Grandmother was huge. My parents were huge, and just my siblings and so forth were there for me, had my back, and they helped. It was family. It helped me make that transition, and to help. I don't want to say kind of start over, but help make that adjustment to get ready for the next step.
That's the one thing I love about the community we live in and just how we are as Virgin Island people. Like, we support our own. We come to their aid when they need help. It's such a big culture thing for us where family is important. And your family extends past your blood relatives. It extends
Mhm.
into your neighbors, it extends to your teachers, your coaches. So we have that family aspect here in the Virgin Islands, and that helps to push a lot of our athletes forward. So we're glad to see that it helped you in the same way that it helping some of the kids that are pushing forward right now as well.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, that's definitely what I'm all about, and attribute a lot of my success to, is that family and friends and all of that. The big, I want to say, big connectedness that we have back
Mhm.
there in the islands, and the representation and the support.
Now, can you tell us what degrees you received from your university or your college days?
Yeah, so I originally went into school, so my family has my parents, dad is a physician. My mom was a physician's assistant. Um, so I don't want to say I had that pressure, and then going into, oh, you got to get in the medical field. I actually went the psychology route. So I got an undergraduate degree, and since I transferred, I had an extra year, so I had to sit out a year, but I was able to attain an extra year in order When you transfer, you have to sit out. So I was able to get an undergraduate degree in psychology, as well as I stayed for all summers throughout my time at Boston University, and stayed through summers and just did as much class as I did. And I think towards the end of my junior year, I graduated undergrad, but still had another year of eligibility, a year and a half eligibility. So I was able to sign up. I got into a master's program in it was a sports psychology, and as well as like physical education and coaching. It was all like one kind of huge degree intermixed, but with the main focus on sports psychology. So while going through, playing and training and doing classwork, I was able to kind of knock out, two birds with one stone and get multiple degrees in the end.
Now, what was that experience like, balancing school and sports? It's never easy. But what is it like in college?
It can be trying. It's very tough, and I think it takes time to, and it took me a lot of time to get into that mode. It takes a lot of discipline, and because you'll come home from practice, for example, and you'll be so tired that you don't want to look at a book. No, so you got to figure out your kind of own normal in regards to getting your schoolwork done. Luckily, at BU and in a lot of schools, they have like study halls set up where you can get tutoring, you can get extra help. But figuring out ways to get it done and just creating a schedule of ways where you can get your work done while being super active, with training, with sports, intermixing the games. It can be challenging, but it's definitely tons of different opportunities of ways to get it done.
All right, so we had a pretty interesting half just now, but we're actually going to take a break and go to a commercial really quickly, and we're going to get right back to you with the meat and potatoes of this good stuff we have coming up for our viewers.
All right, cool.
I will be right back with more Between the Lines.
I'm doing great, even though every day is not fine. But still I woke up today, another day to get on my grind. Got me singing, whoa, whoa, effort, I'm built for bond really. Whoa, whoa, effort, I'm built for bond really.
All right, and welcome back to more Between the Lines, presented to you by Livewire Sports. Omari, you still here with us?
Yeah, man, still here.
All right. So we're just like our regular sports game. We're gonna get into the second half of this right now.
All right.
All right. So can you tell us a little bit of when you noticed that, when you realized that your career in sports doesn't have to be playing, that it can be in the background somewhere?
I'm sorry. Repeat that again. I'm sorry. Say that again. I
At what
apologize.
point did you realize that you could have a career in sports without being a player?
Without being a player?
Yes.
Um, I mean, I think that came to me.
All right. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Let's see if we can get the sound back right now. Can you hear me now, Mari?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yep, can hear
Yeah.
you.
I think with coming up with a career outside of sports, with not being a player, kind of came to me after I finished playing ball. I played overseas for about 5 years and was coming back, always trying to figure out what's the next step, um, got into some coaching. I coached some tennis and some basketball at the high school level here, and then was also had that opportunity to and decision to kind of go into the medical field. So I went into nursing, um, and kind of did everything for the most part in nursing, and went worked with orthopedics, worked with in the ICU, worked in the mental health field, and kind of trying to figure out a way to incorporate a mixture of my skills and background and so forth. So kind of led me to where I am today in regards to working, trying to work with athletes with, mental health issues, as well as, people in general who are going through, tough times and mental health issues.
Now, where did you play when you played overseas?
So I played overseas for about 4.5, almost 5 years. I started off in Portugal, in the Azores Islands, island called Terceira. It was in the top division in Portugal. We'd fly back and forth between the islands and the Azores to Portugal, play teams all up and down Portugal as well as in Spain. Second year, I was out in Bosnia, and that was good times. That was really interesting. And we played in the top division there. Had a really good season there. Was able to play in Serbia, travel to Serbia, Croatia, Montenegro, all up and down
Wow.
in that area. Third year, I think it was right before. I think it was the Olympics. I can't remember what Summer Olympics it was. But my agent was like, "Oh, there's no jobs. There's no jobs." So I was like, "Oh my gosh, I came off of a really good year and I have no opportunities." So one of my old buddies and old teammates from Portugal was from Angola, and a lot of people don't know anything about Angola. People hear Africa, most people, ball players that play overseas hear Africa are like, "Nah, I'm not going down there. That's like end of your career." And I was hesitant at first, but trusted this guy because he was a close teammate and stuff in Portugal, and he is from there, and he was the captain of this brand new team down there. So I went, and it was by far the best decision of my life going down there. It was like basically living at home in the islands and playing ball every day. The
Right.
weather down there is beautiful. One practice a day, on the beach all day, every day. Beautiful beaches similar to the islands. Like it was the food similar to the islands. A lot of culture. It was amazing. By far the best experience of my life. And then after that was uh, I did a year in. I didn't do a year. I did 3-4 months in Lebanon, and was like, yeah, got to figure out the next steps. Always
Right.
in the back of my mind, what's the next steps? What's the next steps?
So jump back into the mental health sports clinic. Now, do you work there or are you the owner of the clinic?
So right now, actually, it's a mixture of things kind of going on right now. So I actually work. I'm a nurse practitioner, so I'm a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner.
Wow.
So that I work with any range or age range from child and adolescents to adults. My main focus right now is with child and adolescents, going through mental health issues, anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, behavioral issues, personality disorders, whatever it may be. Work with them, able to provide a mixture of therapy, medication management. And along with that, I also, am available to work with athletes, with my background in sports psychology, as well as having, this degree and this experience as a mental health nurse practitioner. I'm able to provide, it's kind of its own niche. And I think that's the thing that I don't want to, say stands out about what I have to offer, but it's kind of like its own thing because it doesn't really exist out there. And it's an up and coming thing, especially with all these athletes coming out about their mental health issues, Kevin Love, Michael Phelps, and people who are just, big advocates for mental health in general. And there was a documentary. Hello?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, sorry if I'm jumping all over the place, but there's a documentary that recently came out by Michael Phelps called "The Weight of Gold," and there was an Olympic athlete named Katie Orlander. I think her name is Orlander, four-time Olympic athlete, gold medal champion. And the whole documentary is about, Olympic athletes and, their mental health issues. And there's a line in that that, I relate to so much and kind of clicked and set off in my mind like, hey, I think you're on the right path with, your goals and working with, being able to help out athletes going through really tough times. A lot of sports psychologists, and she states throughout the course of this interview that, I would go see sports psychologists. A lot of sports psychologists are there and they're able to help, but sports psychologists are there and they want to be, they want to, put their name out there and be like, oh, I'm the sports psychologist who, helped this athlete. And she says, when really there aren't, many, clinicians and people out there, who want to specifically focus on, someone who's going through severe depression or having thoughts of wanting to harm themselves or family issues or, severe anxiety. So that's where I know that, my thought process in regards to this field in ways of helping athletes in ways that others can't is something that I know that, myself and hopefully can inspire others to, get into this field and go along this track.
So how long have you been in this field, especially working with mental illnesses that relate to athletes?
I've been in it for about about a year now, I would say. I've always been working, with athletes kind of on the side while I was going through school, in regards to helping them through, their tough times. But it's only now kind of starting to blossom because of, I think there's more awareness out there and people are starting to come about and say, hey, I think there's something wrong. And I think that's one of the big things that I like to talk about as well is that I think, mental health needs to get to a point where, and hoping that mental health will eventually get to the point where people are like, it's not looked at as a bad thing when someone says, I need help or needs to go see a therapist. I feel like a lot of people's reactions when you hear, oh, your family member tells you, I got to go see a therapist, the first reaction out of someone is, oh, what's wrong with you? Whereas that should be, going to see a therapist to talk about, your issues, your anxiety, whatever it may be, needs to be seen as something that's, considered normal, just as like, you have ailments, you have a headache, you have a broken hand, you have a broken whatever, you're going to go see that doctor or that clinician to help, fix that certain problem. Going to see someone to talk about, you know, your issues and what's going on up here, you know, what's wrong with that?
So now, how can managing your mental health affect athletes on the field? Like, what can it do to you? What negative impacts can it have to not deal with your mental health on the field?
Oh, it can have a ton of severe effects. Um, you know, there's, you know, lots of different athletes that have come out saying, you know, they have, you know, panic attacks, for example, and, you know, say they're in a crowd, or, you know, social anxiety, or, you know, they line up, you know, say on the football field or in the basketball field or whatever competitive event that they're about to, and they have these panic attacks where they're just so unbearable that they can't focus, their heart's racing, you know, even though, you know, people, you get up and you get amped up for an event, you know, your heart's going to race, but it's just so uncontrollable that you don't know what to do, don't know how to manage it. Kevin Love came out with a big thing about that, where he just had panic attacks um, out of nowhere, and he thought that he was going to die. And that's, you know, clinically, textbook clinically, that's one of the symptoms is, you know, having these, you know, feeling like impending doom, like you're going to die and you have absolutely no control of it. But looking back at it, and one of the big things that, you know, I believe is a lot of issues stem from mental health in general, stem from previous things that, you know, people haven't dealt with, like when they were younger, whether it be previous trauma, previous abuse, previous things that, you know, anxiety, that, you know, have been dealing with for a long period of time that was never addressed. And stigma plays a huge role into this. And I know there's stigma all around the world. You know, people can be like, oh, you know, we have stigma in the islands, we have stigma here. There's stigma exists everywhere, man. That's just the way things are. But you know, I feel, you know, I take it upon myself, and, you know, I want to continue to be an advocate for, you know, for everyone, especially a lot of people in the islands who, you know, we might not be able to, you know, be getting the services that, you know, they have available in other places. But just to continue to be an advocate for all athletes in general, and people, you know, who have been through it, and, you know, want to talk about it, that it's okay to not be okay.
I know there's a lot of things that you can look out for, but is there any specific symptoms like applying to younger children that we can see from the outside that might be a hint of mental illness as far as it's concerned in sports?
Yeah. So, in regards to kids and a child adolescent, always important to, you know, just have open communication as well. You know, that's one of the biggest things, especially with the child adolescent population, is open communication between, you know, coaches. There's a lot of pressure, especially in the adolescent population. You know, there are kids out there seeing, you know, these videos and highlight videos of, you know, these superstars, and they're out there trying to mimic, you know, and copy all of these moves. And then, you know, you have pressure from the parents, and then pressure from the coaches, and then pressure from, you know, their peers and their teammates. So it's important to have that, I think, open communication with them, and note that, you know, hey, it's okay to not always be the superstar. And, you know, whether you have, you know, you know, whether you're anxious, you know, whether you're super down on yourself after you know, miss a shot or mess up on a defensive play or offensive play, it's okay. You know, it is okay, and move on to the next play. I think that's one of the big things. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I think so. What are some of the things that coaches, because we know we have a lot of coaches here watching, we have a lot of student athletes. We want to be able to help our athletes as best as possible. What can you do as a coach to kind of bridge that gap between sport and the athlete and mental health to help them
okay.
along those lines?
Um, Communication is always huge. And just when you say bridging that gap, um, it's important that I think for the coach to, I think, share with the athlete that, you know, it's like when, like, for example, you know, when a coach gets on a player, Because I feel like a lot of times kids take things out of context
Yeah.
and
So,
always think that, oh, the coach, and I hear this a lot because, I speak with these kids and they're like, oh, the coach just hates me. He's just trying to get on me, on my case. He doesn't like what I'm saying. And I think it's a lot about communication and clarifying with your student athletes that, hey, we're doing this in order for the betterment of the team. It's not like, and you'll have coaches that will rag on kids, and that's normal. That's a part of the game. But a lot of kids will take it personal. A lot of kids will take that home with them. They'll get me wrong. There are resilient kids who can fight through that and, take that, that mental toughness and work and continue to progress and to become better players. But there's also a huge majority of kids who, people call them sensitive or soft or whatever it may be, that really take things personal. And I think it's, important as a coach to have that open line of communication with kids and be like, hey, things are okay. We all should be, on the same page, have that common goal of whether it be winning, whether it be, getting to the postseason. So just communication, I think, is the key.
now, for you doing this for all these years, and I heard you analyze yourself earlier, saying that you might have been depressed back in those times. What is your source of motivation, your source of of importance for mental health? What motivates you to do this every day for student athletes?
Oh, um, great question. My source of motivation is, I think, my family, um, my friends. You said people of the Virgin Islands, and just inspiring others and trying to represent um, where I'm from, and just I'd say my parents. I think I'm just inspired in a way to figure out a way to help others, and I don't want to say be the voice of others, because I feel like people need to share their voice in their own way, but um, I don't know. I just feel like I'm inspired by a bunch of different things, but I'd say mainly my family, friends, and just trying to give back and be beneficial to others in the most way possible.
Now, you just talking about this mental health stuff has me thinking about my childhood and what happened to me when I was playing sports. And
No, no.
really, I'm trying to analyze whether I was thinking wrong at that point, whether I was thinking right. But it's definitely a thought provoking conversation, and it's a conversation we need to have more often with athletes. They need to understand that physical health is just as important as mental health, and they go together. That makes a successful athlete. As you say, we have a lot of superior athletes out there
Mm-hmm.
who break down at the end because of mental health. Like they can't take it anymore, and then they start making ill-advised decisions or
Mm-hmm.
just things that are detrimental to them. So it's important that athletes understand that mental health is just as important as physical health. Just as important as the body is the mind, definitely. So
Oh, most definitely, and it's very important, as you said, and there's just so many aspects to it too. It's there's getting ready for games. There's throughout games. There's post games. Like you have your endorphins that build up, that let down after. There's injuries, that you're dealing with. That athletes go through, and there's just so many aspects that need to be addressed in so many different ways. And it's a pretty open field. And even what's important, this is I want to say kind of random, but on the side, working with athletes, another aspect of of the mental health and athletics in general that I'm working towards addressing, that I feel like no one addresses, is the referees. Talk about someone who who is hated by all in every single sporting event. How about what they're going through on a regular basis? No one even cares to think about that.
definitely. All right. So what's next that's big for you, Omari? Are you planning to open your own clinic sooner or later?
um, I don't know, man. There's potentially there's I'm working on a bunch of different things right now. There's lots of different opportunities. Obviously in regards to this field. Um, I would, my dream is to figure out a way to, give back and help out down in the islands, actually, to be honest with you. Figure out some kind of way to help, whether it be from afar or there, whatever it may be. But there's such a huge need. And I think the challenge is figuring out how to help the most people, because I could continue to do what I'm doing, meeting individually with kids, and I'd be happy with that. Or do I want to go and try and promote this the big time and help thousands and thousands of people? So it's kind of in that process of just trying to figure out which is the best way to go.
All right, so that's great to hear that you want to work in our community, because Live Wire Sports has something really big coming up, and we definitely want you and mental health to be a part of this. So we will definitely be in contact about that.
Awesome, I would love to.
All right, so you survived our interview portion of the show. All right, so you can relax a little bit now. Here's the fun part.
Man.
Get into a little. It might be a small argument, because sometimes I don't like the answers that I hear when it comes to this game. This game that's coming up right now, right? Sometimes I don't like the answers, but I'll let you know if I don't like the answers.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So the game is called A Few of My Favorite Things. I'm gonna ask you something that's your favorite, and you're just gonna reply with a specific answer, and I will let you know. Trust me, I'm gonna let you know if I like it or if I don't like it.
All right.
All right. So a few of my favorite things. What is your favorite color, Omari?
Oh, blue.
See, this is what I'm talking about here. Like, I'm wearing red. You can see all the Live Wire red going on. So I don't know why blue isn't a good color. I'm glad that your name tag is red as well, so you can understand that it's all about red hair today. Okay.
Okay, I got you.
Your favorite athlete?
Oh, I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, just from some of my buddies and people who I have conversations on the regular, and LeBron James, and I see your reaction. But the reasoning behind it is, and you could go have the argument about Jordan. I have a good one for you to think about mentally with Jordan. And don't get me wrong with him being the greatest of all time. Okay, I understand the argument. But LeBron James, for what he's done on the court and most importantly off the court in regards to social injustice, giving back to the community. He has some mental health stuff too in regards to sponsoring like an app for breathing and wellness, overall mental health and wellness. But yes, him. And so in regards to, and I saw your reaction, I believe, and quote me here, that the whole, what's it called? The Jordan documentary that came out, The Last Dance. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I believe that was released at the perfect time. And and you can't say, there's nothing anyone can say. It was released at the perfect time because COVID hit, all of athletics stopped, everyone's at home, and Michael Jordan's in his eyes like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time. Now we can really show them what's up. That strategy came out, and everyone's like, okay, there's no comparison. Jordan has LeBron, but I don't think that fools me.
It has me. It has me because I'm a Michael Jordan fan. To me, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. But my favorite athlete as well is LeBron James, for the things that you mentioned. He's a great person. He's a greater person off the court than he is on the court. Mm-hmm. I'm not a LeBron fan. I don't like to see him play basketball. It's not. But when it comes to the stuff that he does for his community and as a person and being a leader, not only in the sports world, but a leader in general, because he is the biggest athlete on the planet right now. So he's to the forefront of everything, and he does what he's supposed to do off the court with being a leader. So he's definitely my favorite athlete. So I definitely agree with you on LeBron James.
All right, cool.
Favorite musical artist?
I'm big on Bob Marley, man. I've been listening to Bob Marley since my mom's from Jamaica originally. So she had all of Bob Marley's songs and stuff since I was young. When I was overseas playing abroad and traveling and stuff, I listen to that, and a lot of jam band too, actually. but
I
Bob Marley for sure.
You can't ever argue with Bob Marley. He's definitely one of the greatest artists of all time, and his impact goes across the many different genres it has. You would hear country people sampling Bob Marley stuff. You can hear hip hop. You can hear some of the new reggae songs here. They all have, at one point sampled something from Bob Marley. He is one of the greatest artists of all time. That's a
No,
great
most
answer.
definitely. There's actually, I'm a big documentary person. I love movies, but I love documentaries. And there's a documentary out. I can't believe it's on HBO or Showtime called Marley, and it just goes through his whole life. And that was mind blowing to me, just talking about everything, all that he did for his country, talking about civil unrest, the travel, the trips back and forth to Africa, uniting the country, uniting Jamaica, and it's really inspiring.
All right, your favorite hobby besides sports and mental health? Because I'm sure you're going to say mental health. So
No,
besides,
no. Um, oh, favorite hobby besides sports, you said?
yes.
I like, like I said, I love playing with my kids, man. I got three daughters, so busy with them nonstop. Um, as well as I would say, I like to watch movies. I'm a big movie buff. Um, and I like to grill out. I have a smoker. I do a lot of smoking, cooking food and stuff. So those are some of my hobbies.
So you definitely won for best answer ever just now when you
Yeah,
basically said being a dad. So being a dad is your favorite hobby besides sports. So that's undefeated. I don't think you can really beat that. That's a great answer.
man.
Now the
Got
smoking
to.
thing now we gotta test that. We accept donations at Live Wire Sports. We have to
All
test
right.
you. You know, you can't just set up your and then you don't do it well. So we're definitely gonna have you on the ones and twos at the barbecue for sure.
I got you. I got you.
All right, your favorite sports team.
Oh, uh, I gotta go back. 2016 Cleveland Cavaliers, man.
Oh no,
I
no.
have to, man. I have to. I'm sorry. That that event, that coming back from down 3-1, that I'm sorry, that's gonna resonate with me for the long
That
period of time. And
that is a horrible choice. Horrible. Of all the great sports team it has, you choose the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm sorry, man. That one season, that finals in general, that's history right there, man. I'm
That was,
sorry. I
that
know
was
I'm gonna get a lot of hate, obviously, but that resonates with me. And I think I won a really big bet. I think for that, that's why it stands out for me too.
you win two times. You got to see the team win and you still
Exactly.
win your side. So hey, that's a good reason. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Your favorite academic subject in school?
Oh, that's good. Um, in high school, I really loved Spanish and had a good Spanish teacher. Rest in peace to him as well too. I think he recently passed away. But college, it was psychology. I mean, that was my major, so I was pretty good at math, but at the psychology.
So now, can you still speak Spanish fluently,
Oof.
or you just had a good in high school?
Más o menos. When I was in, and that's the thing I did enjoy about traveling when I was in Portugal, and they speak Portuguese there, but also in Angola they speak Portuguese. It's like a mixture like Angolan, African Portuguese, but I was speaking fluently because I was speaking it every day, and that's the one thing that I learned is that you can learn it in the classroom and you're speaking it, but then you're going right back to speaking English. But once you're immersed in whatever culture you're in and speaking that language every day, especially the Romance languages, Spanish, French, Italian, have a lot of similar, um, what I want to say, like verbiage,
Mhm.
and main, yeah, verbiage. So a lot of those words kind of translate. I had teammates that spoke 6 or 7 different languages, and it's like you talk about really using that other side of the brain and being well versed and be able to speak in all those different languages. Now you had countries like Bosnia where that language is just like I'm not even going to begin to try, and Lebanon, the Arabic or whatever it is, I'm not even going to begin to try. But some of those Romance languages in those main countries were were pretty cool to learn.
All right, so I think I got this one already, but I'm gonna give you an opportunity to change your mind because it wasn't that great. Your favorite sports moment that's not of you.
That's not of me. Come
Yes.
on, man.
Please do not bring back up the Cleveland Cavaliers.
That's not of me. Jeez, that's a tough one.
Something that you lived through, something that you is iconic.
That's iconic.
The sports moment.
Oh man. I think I have to go back to tennis. I'm a big fan of like, the old, like, I grew up with my dad, playing and watching a lot of tennis. So I'm like a big Wimbledon fan, big French Open fan. So um Rafael Nadal and all, the greatness that he's had in tennis. I think he's won like 9 or 10, French Open championships. There's an old Brazilian guy who not many people would probably be familiar with. My dad, if he's watching it, would definitely know. His name is Gustavo Kuerten, and he was like one of my favorite players, a Brazilian guy who won the French Open like 2 or 3 times. But they're just random, things. I'm always gonna have that LeBron in the back of my head, the 2016. But if you want to hear something different, I can appease you.
I'm not gonna lie to you. My first time really watching tennis was probably when Nadal. I think he beat Federer for the first time. Was it?
Yeah.
It was just like, well, he was so young, so it's like, okay, he's young. He's like doing stuff like that older people are supposed to be doing. So it was a great moment for me. So he has always been my favorite tennis player from that point on. So whenever he's playing, I try to watch. I miss it most of the time, but if he's playing, I try to watch. I try to look up his games, his stats and stuff like that because he is a great athlete. Definitely.
Yeah, he's a champion, man. He's a champion.
All right, your favorite sports movie?
Oh, that's a good one. Oh, okay. Excuse me. He Got Game with Ray Allen, and Denzel's in that, which is great. And Blue Chips. And a good thing, one of the interesting about Blue Chips, because it both kind of surrounds like that whole recruiting, college basketball type, scenario. And one of the things about Blue Chips is, which is interesting and cool, is that one of the players in that throughout the course of that movie, his name is Matt Nover. He's like the tall Indiana guy, white guy on the team, along with Anthony Hardaway and Shaquille O'Neal. He's the other guy that they recruited, played against him when I was in Portugal, but he was older. I gave him the business too, but he he was a lot older, but he's been playing for forever. He played, I think, on one of those championship teams with Bob Knight, in real life at the University of Indiana. Wow. So he was a seasoned veteran, but I remember talking to him about that because that was like one of my favorite movies, like growing up watching that with the hoops. But yeah.
I mean, that Bob Knight chair moment might be one of the most iconic sports moments too, as well. Honestly,
yeah, man, yeah, jeez.
That's definitely a good movie. I definitely into He Got Game. The storyline about it was just so interesting. It happens often now in life. You see it a lot where students say, athletes say that their dad wasn't around or they had difficulties with their parents growing up, and they were still able to make it. So it's definitely an interesting story that you hear over and over throughout sports.
Most definitely.
And then again, you have Denzel. Can't lose.
Yeah, you can't beat him, man.
And then one of the greatest shooters of all time in Ray Allen.
Yeah.
His skills weren't great, but he's great on a basketball court.
Yeah, oh yeah, most definitely.
All right, so you survived our interactive segment. Now we're gonna get into some of the questions that the viewers have asked on the live stream, and we can get you to answer some of those if you do have the answer to these questions. Okay?
Sure.
All right. So the first question is from Cleon Boston. What advice would you give to young VI student athletes who may be excelling locally and are considering relocating to continue developing? How do you prepare? How do they get mentally and physically prepared?
Great question. And they're considering relocating. um, I would say mentally and physically. Physically, I can start with creating a plan, like creating a workout plan, a workout regimen. Get together with a local coach, or if you're in touch with coaches or certain programs in the states. There are tons of different programs available, especially now with COVID-19, whatever sport it may be. I'm particularly speaking towards basketball. I have a guy who I graduated college with who has a program where it does virtual training online, so to help kids get their games right. So from a physical standpoint, I would say come up with a routine, train hard, train often, eat well, sleep right, all the typical things that you would usually do as a preparing for uh, athletic success. Mentally, a lot of similar things in regards to preparing mentally is eating right, sleeping right, and not getting too down on yourself when you don't have the immediate results that you may be trying to attain. Sports in general is I think it's something that everyone wants to be the superstar immediately. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of discipline, a lot of training, and all of those other things that I said in regards to physically being prepared. The physical helps build into the mental as well.
All right, let me see. We have another question here from Kimoy Graham. This might be Kimoy Graham. Sorry, might be a multi-answer question, but we're gonna figure this one out.
All
What
right.
is the best way as a father to train your coach to train or coach your kid in sports without applying too much pressure and making them still have fun? As an ex-athlete, I'm really competitive sometimes, and I think I may push my son too hard. The last thing I want to do is cause him any anxiety or low self-esteem by coaching him.
Awesome question. And that is one of the things that a question that I get pretty often from from parents and so forth, because there is a lot of pressure out there from these kids, from parents, from peers, um, and I would say there is no real straight up correct answer to that, because each person, each parent, has their own, ways and methods of coaching and communicating with their child. And it can be very, very tough. And I find that even now trying to do that with my kids, because, trying to coach your kids, it can be tough at times because they see you as dad or mom, and, it can be hard to push them. So, it's kind of tough with giving advice at times, to parents, and I try and tell them, figure out ways to find that right balance where you're pushing them, but you're not over pushing them to the point of where, hey, this is too much, and they just want to give up. And understanding, coming from that athlete mindset, it can be very challenging and very difficult, but it's finding that kind of intermediate of okay, and letting them kind of come into it on their own as well. Sometimes you find a lot of parents and coaches over pushing their child, and it just leads to burnout, to kids not wanting to play the sport anymore. So it's a very fine line in regards to coaching your children.
All right, it's a very good answer. I think that answers the question thoroughly, actually. Another question we have from Quissy Howard. You guys had a lot of close games against public schools in your senior year. When did it click? When did it click prior to that you can compete on a higher level?
Queasy, what's up, man? uh, that's a good question. And by the way, I like how you brought that up, because we did beat some of those public schools that we never. I don't know if any other schools, any other private team schools had beaten them public schools in the past, but yeah, that was a big deal to us. I think at the time. I don't know how much it goes recognized, but I think it clicked. It was hard for me to kind of tell if it really clicked or not because that I could compete at a higher level. And I think it was a couple of maybe of the summers and in between, my junior and senior year when I went off or played, a couple of those tournaments up in the States or going away for like a tryout tournament or, one of those exposure clinics during the summertime or summer camps, and started to get, some, coaches that showed some interest at the lower levels. I think it was D2 and D3. And then I think I just really got lucky in regards to all that happened with, some of the coaches down there, Cyril Benjamin, Corbett, Kirby Calendar, was another guy that, worked with me a lot, and guys just trying to get my name out. But yeah, it was kind of hard for me to tell when it actually really clicked, I would say.
All right. So we actually have a very interesting surprise for you here. I know you're not expecting this, but this is fun. I love this. This is the exciting part of the show.
What you got, man?
We actually have some pictures of you here.
Yeah.
We want to know what was going through your mind or what was happening in this moment. What does it remind you of? All right. So got a couple pictures here. You ready to go?
Yeah, all right. Don't embarrass me too much.
No guarantees, no promises. Let's see what we have here. Let me see if I get the first picture loaded right here for you. Boom.
All right. That's not a bad one. That was BU. Excuse me. That was my senior season. Had a pretty good year. I think it was all conference. And BU was great times, man. That was, I don't know what kind of face I'm making there. My mouth open is a little weird face. But BU was some good times. Funny thing about BU is when I did transfer and initially meeting my coach, and my coach was really, really rough, and he's really, really a tough coach, but he taught me so much about the game, especially from the defensive aspect. Like, I feel like I could, still till today, like, know different defensive rotations and slides and everything like that, because he was really, really hard on us, and really, I think at one point in time, I think throughout the course of my junior and senior year, we led the nation in regards to the least amount of points being allowed by other teams, because we were that so, tightly knit on defense. But my relationship with him, I hated him in college. And I tell him that to today. I hated my head coach in college. And his son, is one of my best friends, became my roommate. And, that's, our relationship started to grow. But it's just crazy how things kind of panned out. So I didn't think I would ever have a relationship with him, after I graduated college. But now up till today, now he's one of my, I can say, closest friends. I talk to him at least once a week, like the relationship that we have now. And I think it was based on all that he did for me, and, that he did for me in school and college, and, helping me to kind of grow and to develop and to mature, and, helping to mature and hold myself accountable and responsible for things in life, and just helping to grow and develop.
All right, let's see if we got another good one here for you. So load this one up.
Drop balls on them. Win-win.
Hey, guy, give me something now. You had a whole clip. I've never seen nothing like that before, and between the lines. So you have to give me something good about that.
That was BU days, man. That was I think my junior year. against Vermont, who was like our rival, and I believe we won that game. That was at Vermont, and we didn't really often win up there, and that was a big game. I think I had a really good game that game, but again, good teammates, tough coaching, and good game planning, and was luckily enough to be able to show my skills. I think I was a late kind of developer in regards to overall basketball, man. I feel like I really didn't start to blossom, really, kind of show potential until later on, after I, towards my senior year, but also when I started playing overseas and really started developing in my game is when I started to develop more.
Now, were you able to make any all-conference team or anything of that sort at your Boston University years?
I did. I made I think it was third team all conference, and my senior year had worked really hard to really get in shape and condition. I always had trouble with my weight. Like I said, I came in, I think after I transferred, I was like 320 or 330, and by the time I graduated, I was down to like 265. And we're just in really good shape. So it was just a lot of hard work, a lot of extra getting up early, running, training, and just really the tough part, about a lot of athletes. Some athletes have this trouble and problem, and others don't, is eating properly, man. And it's tough. It's one of the tough things that I address too as a mental health clinician, is having the right diet, because as a young athlete and a young kid, you can just come in, eat the pizza and eat the fries and burgers, and it just runs through your system because of that high metabolism. Also, you're working out so much, but a lot of athletes are so used to that regimen of eating whatever they want because they're just going to burn through it. But you get into that repetitive cycle of eating those things, but so when you're done or you're injured and you're retired, you're still used to eating that. That's when you put on the weight.
Right.
And that can only add to the mental health stressors, the depression, anxiety, whatever it may be.
Definitely. Let's see what else we have here of you. I think we got something good coming up here.
All right. Oh gosh.
Doesn't look good. Right?
I look pretty ripped in that, not to brag. I wish I looked like that now. Jeez. I got you gotta send me a copy of that picture so I can have it show it to my wife.
I'm not sure who's in this battle right now. Your eyes are closed, but you're kind of poking him in the eye. But he has your hand held.
Yeah.
The chair in the back is smiling. What's going on here?
I don't know, man. It looks like a foul or something to me. I don't know what was going on there. A loose ball. I'm hitting him in the face too. So he's holding my hand, but I'm getting him back, I think, by hitting him in the face, man.
All right, it looks like foul on white. That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah. It looks like some kind of foul.
Let's move on to the next one.
Oh gosh, where are you finding?
Who is this team?
That was a teammate. Who is that? It looks like Corey. Yeah, it looks like Corey. He was a freshman. So my senior year, me and one of my other teammates were the only seniors, and we had like a roster full of freshmen. So it was a lot of ups and downs. We ended up still, I think, finishing pretty good in the end of the season in the conference. But, just working with the freshman frustrations. We had some really good freshmen. I think like 3 or 4 of them were like all conference or defensive. And we had some really talented young kids. So as you can see there, he probably did something that messed up or, turnover or whatever it was, and was frustrated. So it was just, trying to provide guidance as a senior captain and, move on to the next play. That's the thing about basketball. It's a game of runs and quick changes.
And at that point, you're doing the right thing as a senior. Like you said, you're taking him under your wing. You're telling him like, let's go, let's get back in the game.
Yeah.
The play is over. So definitely doing what the seniors are supposed to do while guiding a freshman. See if we have another picture here of you that we might like. What
Oh,
is
nice.
this?
I'm sorry.
So when is this? And what is this trophy
That's
for?
that's Angola. That's when we won the cup championship. That was, I think, the best. My overall basketball, I would say, other than representing the VI national team and playing and traveling all over. That was, I think, my top moment in regards to basketball, in regards to winning a championship, and that was in Angola. That was my favorite year, just in regards to overall everything. Man, it was just a great experience down there, and to top it off by winning something that and it was actually a similar experience because it was a playoff type of battle where we were the new team, and down there we had a bunch of guys. Like, people don't know about Angola's, they've won like 10, 15 African national championships. They have guys down there who play in the Olympics every 4 years. So I had a team. My team had like 5 or 6 guys from the national team who had played in the Olympics, like played Kobe, played all these guys for multiple Olympics. And the team that we were playing against, it was like a best of 5 series. They were the military team, sponsored by the military, and they had a bunch of guys too as well who played for the national team. I think they had like 1 or 2 more than we did. So we had battles, man. We went down 2-0. I think it was 2-0, yeah. And we thought it was over, and we came back 1-3 in a row. And that's why, and we weren't expected to win it at all because we were the new team. So it was huge down there, and especially down in Africa in the motherland. It was good times.
All right, so let's move on to this next picture here of you.
All right. That was in Bosnia. That was when we traveled. So in Bosnia, we played in what's called a Euro Challenge as well. So not only were we able to play teams throughout, that area, and Bosnia, Croatia, Serbia, Montenegro, the Euro Challenge, they matched you up with like a random team from another different country. So that was a top team called Oldenburg, top team out of Germany. And so we played them in a series of 2 games. And the weird thing about so it's a 2 games you play, and it's the total number of like, so you'll play like a regular full on 4-quarter game, and no matter whatever the score of that first game, I think the first game we lost by like 15 or whatever it is, that was there. The second game they came to us in Bosnia and we blew them out, but we lost by less than that different margin of like, they'd beat us by like 15 and then we beat them by like 10. We had to beat them by 15 in order to win the series. And like, no one told us this until like, I think like 4th quarter of the second game, because the other team was chilling and we were, beating them pretty handedly. And it's like, okay.
All right, so I think we have one more here of you. We see. Oh, here we. Oh, that's an interesting one.
No. That's me. I think as an RN, doing nursing, man. Yeah, I got. That's just a picture of me for when I started my new career after basketball.
All right, so now was this like early in your career, or was this later down?
This was earlier on in my career. I think like right after I had started like my first job.
What about this one here? Skip to this one right here.
That is that's Boston again. I think that was my senior year. That was first game of the year versus George Washington. I think I was just trying to sneak out a pass there from the paint, but can't remember if we won or lost that game. But I remember George Washington. Yes, they had some pretty stacked teams. We always played them at least once or twice every year throughout the course of my college career. And we had some competitive games with them. They had a couple guys, I think they went to the league too.
Yeah, I've seen George Washington make a couple of deep runs into the NCAA tournament, so
Yeah.
you know that
Mhm.
that's definitely a prominent university at
Mhm.
that level, definitely.
Oh, most
So
definitely.
you survived. I think that's it for our pictures. Hopefully we don't have any more because I don't think you can take any more right now. You look like
Yeah,
you're
no, I'm good.
under enough pressure as it is already. All right, so before we actually leave and dismiss from our show, we just want you to give a message to the student athletes right now that are struggling with we're struggling with the fact that they're not able to play sports here in the Virgin Islands and struggling with the fact that they're unsure of their future, of where to go and how to get there.
Yeah, I know it's really really tough times, and around the world right now, but especially for those down in the Virgin Islands, um, during these difficult times, you know, do what you can to get through them. Whether even if it being figuring out some type of regimen, to kind of stay on your grind and your path. Figure out home workout things, just to keep on pushing, and knowing that I know it's really tough right now with a lot of uncertainties in regards to your futures. Everyone is kind of going through that right now, but know that it's okay to talk about it and voice these frustrations, because keeping it in and holding it to yourself, sometimes that can only make it worse. But whether you voice it, whether you get out there and physically do some type of activity to help get your mind off of those frustrations and struggles that you're going through, it's important to do something about it in any kind of way possible. Instead of, it's better than holding it in, because holding it in is only going to lead you down the negative path.
Definitely, definitely. Um, Thank you, Omari, for coming on. You gave us a completely different insight on sports here today. The mental aspect of it, and that's our goal. We want to touch every different possibility in the sports arena, and this was definitely an interesting one. I learned as the host a lot of different things that we can do or different approaches that we can take to help with mental health and to help an athlete who's especially young to get through
Mhm.
these tough times.
Yeah, most definitely. Hey, man, I really appreciate it. Anything I can do to help out in the future, with you guys, Lorena, anything I can do to help out, to be an advocate, help out any young kids, young student athletes in any type of way, please, reach out. I'd love to try and help out and be an advocate for people back home, and knowing that, hey, it's okay, in any kind of way, to help get to that next level, or whatever it may be, struggles they're going through. Any way I can be of help, I'm always here.
Once again, we want to thank you for coming on, taking time out of your important schedule to speak to us here at the Virginella community, and to talk to us about what it takes to not only get to the next level, but also what it takes to get your mind and body ready for that level. So once again, thank you for coming on. Live Wire fans, we will be back here next week with another episode of Between the Lines presented to you by Live Wire Sports. Before we go, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Coach J from Fabtabulous Nutrition, Leo Sibley for our introduction track, which is called Born Ready. It is on all streaming platforms. Our director, Lorena Robinson, our visual coordinator, Shane O'Neill, and our introduction video was actually designed by Brilliant Designs. Please contact them for any video needs that you have. They have done a great job. We want to thank them for our intro and outro video that you will see as we leave here today. We'll be back next week for another episode of Between the Lines presented to you by Live Wire Sports. Thank you for watching.
Drop balls on them when we check out the oil my Cadillac.
but still I woke up today. Another day to get on my grind. Got me singing, whoa, whoa. Effort, I'm built for born ready. Whoa, whoa. Effort, I'm built for born ready.